Hello and welcome back to Golf News Now, your home of golf news you will find nowhere else. Today we take on the hot button issue of trans athletes and their inclusion in professional sports. Making waves in the mainstream media recently, literally, is trans swimmer Leah Thomas. Notably, she won her division at the NCAA Championships and took home the first division title for a trans athlete ever.
Trans people don't transition for athletics. We transition to be happy and authentic.
A lot was made about this in the media, some supporting Leah and her accomplishment, and others outraged with her win and wanting the title relinquished immediately. Ultimately, she was able to retain her title, but this created a huge controversy in the sports world, and conversations continue to this day about the future of trans athletes and sports. These conversations got us thinking at Golf News Now about the golfing world and how this may affect men's and women's golf moving forward. Today we're going to delve deep into the history and the future of trans athletes in professional golf. On May 13th, 2021, history was made in the United States when transgender golfer and athlete Haley Davidson became the first trans athlete to win a professional golf tournament, winning the National Women's Golf Association mini tour event over a LPGA player and cisgendered female, Perrine Delacour. Haley Davidson continued making history by becoming the second trans player ever to play in the first stage of Q School. She was unable to advance to the second round of Q School, but played well enough to earn Epson Tour status for 2023, which is similar to the minor league system for the LPGA.
As people say, I have an advantage. The woman, Perrine, I played against, she outdrove me all day. The only negativity I get is from people obviously sitting behind their keyboards and sitting at home.
You know, like, I'm a female, she's a female, we should have the same standards. It shouldn't be, well, trans person did it, it's bad, I'm not sitting in the, no one's sitting in the gym or whatever as a golfer. In general, again, I know it's different now.
I've just been drawn to it forever, and I absolutely love it.
A lot of questions have been raised regarding this issue since the success Haley has had, and it does have somewhat of a long and complicated history with the LPGA. This history stretches back all the way to 2008 or possibly earlier. And that's where my detailing of this complicated and often heated topic will begin. But before we get there, please don't forget to like this video and leave a comment with your opinion on this complex issue. Lana Lalas was a pioneer in the trans golf community, transitioning from male to female in the early 2000s after a long career as a law enforcement officer in California. Lana attempted to join the LPGA Tour, but at the time, the LPGA Tour's stance on the issue was all golfers must be born female to compete on tour, and thus was disqualified from competing. Lana Lalas was unable to join the LPGA Tour, but the same rule preventing her from joining the LPGA Tour did not exist in the women's long drive competition. So she entered in 2007 and actually won the tournament in 2008. With pressure from the LPGA, they quickly changed the rules after her win to prevent her from defending her title the following year.
This is what people don't understand. I am not the person I once was, physically. I don't have an advantage anymore. All the testosterone's basically been removed from my body.
This rule change prompted Lana to file a lawsuit against the LPGA, the Long Drive Championship of America, and several of their sponsors. As a result of being sued by Lana Lalas, the LPGA decided to conduct a vote of its members regarding this issue. And in December of 2010, the result of that vote was in. They threw out the rule of having to be born a female to be able to compete on the LPGA Tour. The new rules they implemented stated, as long as you had transitioned 2 years previous, have been on a testosterone therapy for that period, and you can prove that your T levels are sufficiently low, you are free to compete on the LPGA Tour. Lana Lalas never competed professionally again, but she opened the door for other trans athletes to be able to compete. The vote that took place in December 2010 was voted on by current players with LPGA Tour cards. And this seems to make sense. These players' opinions are the only opinions that truly matter in this particular issue. This seems to be a common sense solution for this complex issue, given the women who will be competing against these trans athletes should have the final say about this topic. Voting and getting a consensus of the athletes involved seems a fair solution to us. It doesn't make sense to have pundits and people in the media making decisions that will have no bearing on their future. Everyone has an opinion on this issue, but the only ones that matter are the athletes affected by these decisions. We should respect the consensus of the athletes and try to make the best decisions given their chosen outcome. The road for trans golfers to achieve full status on the LPGA Tour and to compete in major tournaments has become easier over the years. For example, in 2016, the International Olympic Committee made headlines by changing their guidelines for trans athletes, reducing the time these athletes had to be taking the testosterone therapy from 2 years down to 1. The LPGA Tour quickly followed suit, and those rules stand to this day. The International Olympic Committee and the LPGA Tour said this decision was based on evolving science regarding trans issues, but not everybody's in agreement. Most notably, a study completed by the British Journal of Sports Medicine in late 2020 found that trans women maintain an athletic advantage over their cisgendered peers even after a year of hormone therapy. The study suggests 2 years of therapy to be more adequate and realistic than 1 year, and maybe even more than that. There have been critics of these scientific findings, as one would expect, but this and other studies shine a light on how tricky of an issue this has become, with science lagging behind the decisions major sports leagues and committees are making. Meanne Bagger is a now retired professional golfer and trans woman who played professional golf on the Aussies Lady Professional Tour as well as the Ladies European Tour in 2004 and 2005. She was one of the first trans athletes to compete in women's professional sports. Meanne wrestles with the issue of trans women competing in sports to this day. While emphasizing the need for more studies into the effect of transitioning, the loss of testosterone, how long that process actually takes, also the degree it impacts your physical body. And does that point to reasonable reduction in performance and strength to be able to give trans athletes access to women's sports? Bagger knows she doesn't have the perfect answer, but agrees that the little bit of scientific data available suggests there should be a stricter path for trans athletes to be able to compete in professional sports.
I guess we're all the same with everyone. We just want to be the best player that we can be, ultimately come out and win tournaments.
We extensively researched at Golf News Now and couldn't find any evidence of a trans man making an attempt at the men's tour, the PGA Tour, and the coveted PGA Tour card. Currently, there's no ban or requirements for a male trans athlete to compete on the PGA Tour. It does seem to be a tougher achievement given the strength and athleticism that's currently on the PGA Tour, but certainly not out of the question. Not every PGA Tour player hits quote-unquote bombs, and a lot of these players lacking the strength of their competitors rely on consistency and accuracy, which is what I would imagine would be the roadmap for a trans athlete to earn PGA Tour status. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the trans athlete issue develops over the next decade. And I don't think anyone has an idea of what the landscape may look like in men's and women's golf in 2033. As I've stated before, this issue should be resolved and voted on by the athletes it affects in their respected sports. It's clear we need more scientific findings and data on these issues as well. And those findings should definitely play a factor on what's ultimately decided regarding trans athletes. This is definitely a hot button issue for a lot of people, and I'd love to hear from all of you and your thoughts on a resolution to these issues, or your take on this in general. Please be respectful to everyone's opinion, but I'd love to hear what y'all think. Don't forget to like this video, and if you found it interesting, subscribe to the channel because we're going to have a ton more interesting content just like this. Until next time, guys, be safe.